why so much focus on single occupancy vehicle traffic reduction? It comes down to 82 and I-70 function is one thing in Glenwood Springs. So most people don't grasp this that don't live here, but traffic volumes on I-70 in the morning, in the afternoon, and 82, about 70% of that traffic leaves I-70 and gets on 82 in the morning to go eastbound up Valley. Commuter traffic from Parachute, Silt, Rifle, Newcastle, go up all the way to Aspen on a daily basis and return. Generally speaking, all that traffic that's on 82 is on I-70. During the course of this project, we had to come up with a detour plan and manage it and find a place to get it through Glenwood. And it wasn't going to be 4 lanes. It was going to be 2 lanes. And that's on city streets, local roads with stop signs and kids crossing crosswalks to go to school. And so we looked at a variety of options. Glenwood doesn't have a bypass. It's fairly constrained just by the geography and the makeup of the mountains. So there's no good option to get through town. So for the most part of the day, that peak hour traffic almost exceeds the normal 4 lanes at some of the intersections, like 32nd Street and 27th Street during peak hours, even with 4 lanes, where what the traffic engineers might refer to as a level of service D, which isn't very good. There's congestion already. So taking 2 lanes away on a 4 lane, that basically takes all that congestion and spreads it out almost for the entire portion of the day. So that goes back to that 30% and getting that traffic off the road. Those peak hour problems that we had for a normal situation, those were going to persist almost indefinitely. The bridge closure in the traffic volume was kind of like imposing big city or metropolitan area traffic problems on the rural mountain community. So people not being used to this traffic, it's kind of a big step for them and really kind of changing their behavior. You know, in rural communities like this, people are accustomed to using their vehicles to go places when they want to go and not enduring congestion. So coming up with reductions for single occupancy vehicles was a big part of this project. That was a big step for a lot of people. And Graham, you might want to kind of talk about those reductions and how we did that and what was required.
The impacted region we're talking about is Garfield County, Pickens County, and a portion of Eagle County. And it's probably a total population of 70 to 80,000 people, depending on how you count. And they're spread out in 10 different communities over 80 miles. And the economy up here is going to be some level of healthcare is a big sector, government is, but the service industry is also going to be a very large one. And so what we're dealing with here is where housing's more affordable, people live in Garfield County and they're swinging up and going into the Pickens County, Aspen area to help out with that every day. But a point also to not forget in all this is of that 80,000 number, probably 10 to 15,000 live in the Glenwood Springs city area. So they're internally generating a lot of traffic from people going to work, going to school, just moving around, doing errands and whatnot. And so at the time, I think we were like, this is going to be insane. How are we going to handle all this? I think in hindsight, what's very clear is by doing this voluntary massive reduction in roadway capacity, we were going to be creating what you experience in Denver every day, where you're going to saturate your roads, you're going to have queues during those rush hours, you have everybody coming from the suburbs into the city or other similar patterns like that. And so that's what we were going to be creating, with the caveat that this is in a area people live specifically so they don't have to deal with that. And so how are we going to handle a voluntary restriction of capacity? The beta case for this has been done in Aspen, where several decades ago, they made the case that they didn't want more traffic coming into Aspen. And a major part of that was the creation of the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority. And I don't think we quite wrapped our heads around that at the time, but these were the pros. Not only calling them pros, but the specific people we were working with in the organization were the people who have assisted Aspen and Pickens County really on capping their traffic and were going to be the people who knew how to do this. And so while we were restricting and cutting down on our roadway capacity, we brought them in as a partner and they were very willing to do so. We were going to be expanding our transit capacity majorly, and we did that a variety of ways. We had a bus lane within Glenwood. We shut down a lane of Highway 82 within Glenwood that ran the entire length of the city of Glenwood to be able to get them into the core of Glenwood faster in the afternoon. And we set up, looking back on it now, we set up a whole transit center around the pedestrian bridge. Fortunately, a big part of the project was constructing the pedestrian bridge ahead of the vehicle bridge. And that was going to be a very big node where RFTA was going to be able to come in on one side and also pick up on the other. And I think we had several spaces by Amtrak taken over where buses were able to come in, and a whole area on 6th Street on the north side. And so that was what we did within Glenwood. And then beyond that, we were working out in Western Garfield County, so Newcastle, Silt, Rifle, and even Parachute, to set up temporary park and rides and bus service. If I remember correctly, service was increased quite a bit and it was free. What we did there is what I call fast, frequent, and free, your 3 Fs with transit. Really big point to emphasize is that if you are going to stand up a metropolitan area type traffic problem, you need to have a metropolitan type transit backing that is operating in a fast, frequent, and free manner to really incentivize people to get on there in a way that is going to save them time. I believe we were advertising we need 1 out of 3 vehicles off the road. So if you're sitting next to 2 people, one on either side of you, one of you has to do something. I want to emphasize also, when you go through these queue estimates, traffic estimates, I don't want to call it voodoo science, but it is imperfect. I would say it's much more for reference and to kind of give you a guide than it is to give people specific predictions. I would encourage anybody to try and be general, emphasize the impact more than specific numbers. Be like, if you don't do this, if nothing happens, like it's not even... We're not talking minutes anymore. We're talking hours. Back to what did we get? I think we estimated we got about a 25% reduction. Now, what is interesting is that was early on, and this is probably something as far as people's behavior and especially with traffic analyzed, but we did notice as the detour went on, people's definition of what was acceptable went up. And they were willing to deal with more pain. They were willing to go through the queue. And I think we did start getting diminishing returns from what we saw early in the project after that initial 1 to 2 days of testing how bad it was going to be. Done this without RFTA, or at least in the way that we did, I think it would have looked a lot differently. Additionally, we had the van pools. And so we had a lot of people approach us once they heard that we were putting in kind of all this prioritization for buses, including shutting down lanes, expanding a lot of infrastructure exclusively for transit. We had people approach us and say, well, hey, I'm picking up all my workers down in Newcastle, Silt, Rifle, and bringing them up. Can I get access to some of these queue jumps that we were going to be implementing? We kind of went back and forth because we really wanted to prioritize RFTA, but we did agree that, yes, we will do that. And to this day, a little relic of the Grand Avenue Bridge project is you'll see vans with the GAB van pool sticker on the back of their car, and that's what we use to identify them coming through. On top of that, there was school going on in the middle of all this, and Glenwood's a very interesting town. It has a river bisecting it in 2 different directions, and so having to get kids from one side to the other was something we became concerned about. Fortunately, that was another good partner that came forward, Jared Rains with the Roaring Fork School District. He came up with similar plans with RAFT where they would try and figure out, okay, could we walk kids across a pedestrian bridge here or there and then bus them from this or that location? And so that was a major support for us as well.
Individual employers created their own plan for what works for their organization. We gave large employers tools, messaging, strategies, TDM measures, but then those employers embraced all that and created their own plan for their organization.
One of the ones I remember most is Gould Construction. Gould had a fleet of e-bikes, and I remember seeing a lot of their workers going down the Rio Grande bike path in the morning or the afternoon. So they were getting out of their cars and using the local trails to get to the van pool or wherever they were coming and going from.